Welcome to the OrthoCast. Today, our guest is Orthodox Loner. His name is Sava. He's living in Serbia. I'm sure you've seen some of his videos. They show up in my recommended a lot. He's had a lot of really viral clips and writings and talking about the writings of Holy Fathers and some really amazing Orthodox chants. He's living in Serbia right now. Thank you so much for joining us. And my first question for you is, what was your upbringing like? Uh, did you ever have an atheist phase? What was your childhood experiences like with religion?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Kyle. Um, well, I was baptized when I was 3 years old, as most of the Serbian children are. Um, and honestly, that's pretty much it. Like, my parents never brought me to church, they never told me anything about God or anything. And they themselves weren't spiritual in any sense. And it was like that for a quite some time. Um, there were moments, obviously, in life when I was maybe angry at God, as everybody as everyone is at some point. Um, but yeah, it took me 20 years to even learn the basic teachings of Christianity. And I mean, there were like certain circumstances in life that kind of led me to it. And these Christian debates on YouTube were quite edifying at first because the intellectual part of the Christianity was the first thing that really seemed appealing to me. It wasn't the morality aspect, it wasn't necessarily the meaning of life, but this debate, these intellectual arguments were really interesting to me. And so, since I wasn't part of any, like I was baptized Orthodox, but I wasn't part of any Christian tradition growing up, I had absolutely zero bias toward any tradition. Like I didn't care about if you're Catholic, if you're Baptist at that point. So I was ready to give an equal chance to every tradition. So no one can tell me that, oh, you are Orthodox because you were born Orthodox in an Orthodox country. That wasn't a factor for me. So I started reading the Gospels. I started looking for a church. I visited few denominations prior to settling in Orthodoxy, even though I live like literally 20 seconds away from the church because it's just across the street. And it was the last church I checked out because I was intimidated by Orthodoxy at first and by the priest, and I thought he was like grumpy old dude, but that's not the case.
Wow. Wow, that's really cool. And so growing up, you probably did you just go to like church services for like the big events like Christmas or, Slava or
Absolutely,
anything?
absolutely nothing. I visited few
Oh, wow.
Slavas, of course,
Mhm,
but I never
mhm.
celebrated myself. Like I had no contact with the divine whatsoever.
Wow. And so it was watching debates online. It spoke to the logic of you. And this was it debates in English, like a lot of these like
Yeah,
English YouTube?
yeah, it was
Mhm.
actually Cliff Connelly and his son. Yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
criticized them a lot, but
Yeah.
actually first started by looking at their videos, and they were really helpful. And I hope that God will count that in because they were really helpful for someone who knew nothing about Christianity whatsoever. And I mean, started mentioning the Gospels a lot, the word Gospels,
Mhm,
Gospels, and then I
mhm,
didn't know what the Gospel means. I mean, later I saw it in Serbian and I realized that, oh yeah, it's that. So
mm.
that the gospel message, that gospel like word was echoing in my head, and I started reading it, and everything started from there.
Wow. Yeah, that's what's good about some of these figures, even though, they're not perfect and we're gonna, pray that they become orthodox, is they can be a good like starting place for
Uh,
people. And so how did you eventually get into orthodoxy? Was it like seeing more debates online or specific Orthodox fathers talking?
well, first of all, it was the when I realized the need for the communion, that I need to partake
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
communion.
Mm.
And I was thinking about where should I go, which church or community should I join. And at the same time, I was also intellectually starting to be more convinced of orthodoxy, because I saw that like the Baptist church with like instruments and freestyle worship is not really it. Like that, I realized that super early, like within 2 or 3 months of exploring Christianity. So I was
Yeah.
kind of leading towards. I really liked the traditional Catholicism at that time. I mean the
Hmm.
aesthetics of it, but
Yeah.
I soon realized that that's almost ancient past. That's really not modern day
Yeah.
Catholicism. So when I saw that I do not belong in any other tradition, I finally decided to just go across the street and talk to my priest and go to confession first time in like ever at 23.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. And did so in Serbia, they have like there's lots of different denominations. Like even though it is a predominantly Orthodox country, there is these like, Protestants and Catholics and everything
yeah.
there.
The thing
Yeah.
is, that's not really the case, because when you see
Mhm.
Protestantism here, it's Anglicans do not exist basically except in Belgrade, the small community of
Mhm.
them. But you don't have Anglican church. You have a Lutheran church, but they're like national Slovakian churches or something. So
Mm.
when American people in the states are speaking about Orthodoxy, and they all say, "Oh, they are kind of using their own languages, their own nationalities and stuff." That's the
Mm.
case in Serbia, but for Protestantism and even Catholicism,
Oh,
because in the
interesting. Yeah.
Vojvodina region where I live in, there is a certain percentage of Hungarian people, and even though every single one of them are born is born in Serbia and know how to speak Serbian perfectly, their church service is in Hungarian language, except the readings of the Gospels. So even if I, as a Serbian guy, wanna submit to Rome and to Pope and go Catholic, I wouldn't understand anything. Even though everybody around me know how to speak Serbian, but yet they're sticking to Hungarian, and it's the same for these Protestant Slovakian churches. Uh, and when you even if you want to go Protestant, if you want to go that route, you either have 7 day Adventism or you have Baptist churches that are more like Pentecostal churches. Where they have almost nothing to do with Baptist theology. So you're not going to be happy in the Balkans or this part of Europe if you want to go other routes other than
Mm.
Orthodoxy. And when I hear American apologists claiming that uh, Catholicism is so universal that everyone belongs to, that's not the case. As I just said, like they're just focused on their communities in Serbia, the Slovakians, Hungarians, and other nationalities.
Yeah, exactly. It's really just like an American Anglo-sphere argument where they're like, "Oh, our churches, are accepting of everyone." But it's like they're just not seeing that every church is made up of people and, they're going to want their language spoken. Like even in the US, there's, churches where it's primarily a Hispanic population, so they do all Spanish. So it's like that isn't a good argument, and it's really just an Anglo-Spear argument. When you look at the rest of the world, it's like ultimately, it's not just about the language or anything like that. It's about what church is true. So how was it coming back to confession and like really understanding the importance of the Eucharist and like really starting to get to, well, I guess for the first time really living that Orthodox life.
Well, I was really happy because my conscience was a bit worrying me, because I realized that I lived in sin for my entire life. I never felt grace. I never came in contact with grace except at those moments when I was looking at the Gospels for the first time. But other than that, I didn't really experience grace at all. So I was a bit concerning about that. And that is why it was really important for me to finally confess my sins and to take the Lord's Supper for the first time. It was quite a big deal for me. And I'm so grateful and happy that I can do it because, as I said, it takes me 20 seconds to go into my church, while some of you guys are
Yeah.
traveling for hours and hours just to attend the church service.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you were reading the Gospels for the first time, did anything really stick out to you? Like obviously repentance is a huge theme, is like coming to God. You know, you had kind of you were aware of your sin and coming back to confession, it is participating in that repentance. And so what really stuck out to you when reading the Gospels?
Well, I guess at first it was the way the how the words sounded so profound. Like I fell in love
Yeah.
with that because I actually started reading the Gospels in English before reading them in Serbian, and that profound, that is why I love the Psalms so much. Psalms, like they're so profound, they're
Oh
so
yeah,
edifying, they're so deep,
they are.
and it took me some time to realize just how interconnected the Bible is, and how everything is a
Yeah.
reference to something else that happened before. So, yeah, like Scripture is truly amazing.
Yeah, it is how it's this consistent themes throughout the Bible. The Old Testament is like a shadow that is, fulfilled in the new, and it's like all of this is given even like grander meaning. And I love in the Orthros service and in Vespers just reading the Psalms, and it's like just reading it again and again, and then when you really understand it in your heart, you're like you realize how deep this is and how amazing the faith is. And it's really awesome that we have all these saints, even in saints in the Old Testament, like the prophet Saint David. um, he was a terrible sinner. He did really, really, awful things, and yet he continually repented, and he wanted to get better. And so it's like if he can endure and continue repenting, it really gives us an example of what we can do.
Exactly, yeah.
I enjoy. Yeah. And so now I want to talk about your YouTube channel. Is when did you decide, I want to start making some videos? Because you honestly, your channel has some really beautiful like graphics. Like you're very talented with the thumbnails and the whole presentation. It's very professional. So what kind of inspired you to do that, and what are your kind of goals with that?
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Um, well, it started when I was like scrolling on Twitter and saw some Catholics basically arguing that Orthodox Christians are being too toxic, and I myself also witnessed that happening. So I wanted to spread a message or make my first video telling them to chill out a little bit, that we need to show the fruits of our faith,
Yeah.
and that's how it started, and it got immediate intention attention. So I was like, well, this is doing something. Let me try another topic, and so on. That's basically how it started.
Oh.
And about uh, if it was the perfect conditions, I wish if I could make every single video visually appealing, something like Harmony or Dio Creative, and channels of sorts, because I used to edit anime before. I used to make AMVs, and I used to do that for a living
Wow.
for a few years.
Wow.
So I'm quite experienced with YouTube, with handling the YouTube channel and stuff. And I kinda baptized though that editing abilities and that creativity into what what I have today.
That's really awesome, and that's what we should do, is, like that's what's really cool about, Orthodox theology, is that all of these things can be baptized and used for good, and that's one thing that I really loved and was healing about Orthodoxy, is, like, God didn't come to just, condemn us and the world's evil. It's more like God came to heal it, and we can baptize and transform everything, including, our skills. Is like maybe we have a certain skill that we're really skilled in that we're using for something, but then when we come into the faith, we can use that to glorify God. It's just knowing that we can use, we're given certain talents, and we can baptize that and use it for good. It's why I love Christianity. Um, and I think you touched on a really important point with your first topic. Is that something that I've tried to correct myself on over the years, is, being toxic as a Christian, because I think it's especially a pitfall if you're coming into the faith from a just an intellectual point of view. Is it's very easy to have that zeal, and zeal is not a bad thing if it's tempered by love, but zeal without love, it loses the whole point. Is like that's what Christ came to do, is to do everything in love, to have the correct disposition of our heart. And so I've been really trying to correct myself, because I came in through that highly intellectualized version and kind of a polemical version. But then when you start getting in the church and you're reading the saints, you're like, it's we're not supposed to be in a constant state of that. It's like, yes, you will see like certain holy fathers, um, you know, have a few polemical statements, but it's normally just like one or two, where they're fighting a heresy just once, and it's like they were a very holy person who devoted their entire life to God. They weren't constantly in these polemical over intellectualized debates. Is they were focusing on the spiritual life. Is that was their formation? Is um, they speak very sternly about these things because um, in love, and that's a hard thing to do. And so I think that's a huge pitfall for people who are new, is to not fall into that temptation of pride and toxicity, because it's like orthodoxy has all of the most satisfying intellectual answers, and that can make us, very, proud of our faith and very, zealous for it. We should want to spread the faith, but the Bible is so clear and the saints are so clear that if we don't do it in love, that it's pointless. Because I think if we do that, then we're turning Christianity into just an ideology instead of what it is the royal path. Is it transcends these worldly things of like right and left. Is it's really like a next level thing. Is I think it's easy for people to get intellectually convinced of Christianity and be like, okay, I'm on the right side, I've got the right opinion, and everything's good now. Now we just need to destroy the other side, and everything will be good. But it's like when you read the saints, they knew that they were first among sinners. They really thought that they were the most evil people, because they saw that evil isn't just, a group of people somewhere. Evil is something in our heart, and we don't want to destroy our own heart. And so that's it's really important, I think, is that however you come into the church, it's important to have that spiritual formation and reading the Orthodox spirituality, so we can really mimic those saints.